The 21st of April, 1899, Volume 2, Jesus, the poorest of the poor. This morning, while I was in my usual state, in one instant I found myself within myself, without being able to move. I realised that someone was entering my little room. Then he closed the door again, and I felt he was drawing near my bed. In my mind, I thought that someone had entered furtively, without any one of my family seeing him, and had penetrated even into my little room. Who knows what he will do to me? My fear was so great that I felt my blood freeze in my veins, and I trembled all over. Oh God, what to do? I said to myself, my family did not see him. I feel all numb and I cannot defend myself, nor can I ask for help. Jesus, Mary, my mama, help me. St. Joseph, defend me from this danger. When I realised he was getting upon my bed and he curled up near me, my fear was such that I opened my eyes and I said to him, tell me, who are you? And he answered, I am the poorest of the poor. I don't have a place to stay. I have come to you if you want to keep me with you in your little room. See, I am so poor that I don't even have clothes, but you will take care of everything. I looked well at him. He was a 5 or 6-year-old boy without clothes, without shoes, but so very beautiful and graceful. Immediately I said to him, for me, I would gladly keep you, but what will my father say? I am not a free person who can do whatever she wants. I have my parents who prevent me. As for clothing you, I can do it with my poor toils. I will make any sacrifice. But as for keeping you here, it is impossible. Besides, don't you have a father? Don't you have a mother? Don't you have a place to stay? And the boy answered bitterly, I have no one. Oh, please, don't make me wander any more. Let me stay with you. I myself did not know what to do, how to keep him. A thought flashed within me. Who knows whether it is Jesus, or maybe it is some demon to disturb me. So again I said to him, but tell me the truth at least. Who are you? And he repeated, I am the poorest of the poor. I replied, have you learned how to make the sign of the cross? Yes, he answered. Well then, make it. I want to see how you make it. So he signed himself with the cross. I added, and the Hail Mary, do you know how to say it? Yes, but if you want me to say it, let us say it together. I began the Hail Mary, and he was saying it together with me, when a most pure light was unleashed from his adorable forehead, and I recognized that the poorest of the poor was Jesus. In one instant, through that light that Jesus sent me, he made me lose consciousness again and drew me outside of myself. I saw myself all confused before Jesus, especially because of my many rebuffs. And immediately I said to him, my dear little one, forgive me. Had I recognized you, I would not have forbidden you to enter. And then why did you not tell me that it was really you? I have many things to tell you. I would have told them to you and would not have wasted time in so many useless things and fears. Besides, in order to keep you, I don't need my family. I can keep you freely because you don't allow yourself to be seen by anyone. But while I was saying this, Jesus disappeared. And so it ended, leaving me a pain for not having told him anything of what I wanted to tell him. End of the reading. The 21st of April, 1900, Volume 3. More than sacrament, the cross seals God in the soul. As I was in my usual state, or rather with a little bit of concern about something which it is not necessary to say here, my sweet Jesus on coming told me, and they are sacred vessels, and every once in a while it is necessary to dust them off. Your bodies are as many sacred vessels in which I make my dwelling. Therefore it is necessary that I do some little dusting every now and then. That is, that I visit them with some tribulation, so that I may remain in them with more decorum. Therefore, be calm. Later, after I received communion, having renewed in me the pains of the crucifixion, he added, "My daughter, how precious is the cross! See now, in giving itself to the soul, the sacrament of my body unites her with me. It transforms her to the point that she becomes one with me. But as the species are consumed, the union, truly established, ceases. Not with the cross. The cross takes God and unites him with the soul forever, and it places itself more surely as a seal. Therefore, the cross seals God in the soul in such a way that there is never separation between God and the crucified soul." End of the reading. The 21st of April, 1901, Volume 4, Necessity of the Chastisements, so as not to let man corrupt himself more. Continuing in my usual state, I saw my sweet Jesus, for just a little, with a cross in his hand, in the act of pouring it upon the people, and he told me, "My daughter, the world is always corrupted, but there are certain times in which it reaches such corruption that if I did not pour part of my cross upon the people, they would all perish in corruption." So it happened at the time when I came upon earth. My cross alone saved many from the corruption in which they were immersed. The same in these times. Corruption has reached such a point that if I did not pour scourges, thorns, crosses, causing men even to shed blood, they would remain immersed in the waves of corruption. And while saying this, he seemed to throw that cross over the people, and chastisement would occur. End of the reading. The 21st of April, 1903, Volume 5. Jesus suspends Louisa from her usual state so as to be able to chastise. I went through most bitter pains of privations and of tears, with the addition of seeing myself about to be suspended by the Lord from the state of victim, as indeed happened. In fact, as much as I tried, I could not manage to lose consciousness, but rather I was surprised by so many pains in my bowels as to become restless, unable to make head or tail of anything. I only had a dream at night in which I seemed to see an angel who brought me inside a garden in which all plants were blackened. But I did not pay attention to this. I could only think of how Jesus had driven me away from himself. Then later on, the confessor came, and finding me inside myself, he told me that the vineyards had frozen. I remained so very afflicted, thinking of the poor people, and with the fear that he would not allow me to fall into my usual state, so as to be able to chastise freely. However, this morning blessed Jesus came, making me fall into my usual state. And as soon as I saw him, I said to him, "Ah, Lord, what about yesterday? What did you do? You made your bravado, and besides, without even telling me anything, for at least I would have prayed you to hold back the chastisement in part." And he, "My daughter, it was necessary for me to suspend you. Otherwise you would have prevented me, and I would not have been free. Besides, how many times have I not done what you wanted? Ah, my daughter, it is necessary that scourges pour upon the world. Otherwise, in order to spare the bodies, souls will be lost." Having said this, he disappeared, and I found myself outside of myself without my sweet Jesus. So I went around looking for him, and in the meantime, I saw a sun in the vault of the heavens, which was different from the sun we see, and behind it a multitude of saints who, in seeing the state of the world, its corruption, and how they make fun of God, all in one voice cried out, "Revenge of your honour, of your glory. Make use of justice, for man no longer wants to recognise the rights of his Creator." But they were speaking in Latin. Only I could comprehend that this was the meaning. On hearing this, I trembled. I felt my blood run cold, and I implored pity and mercy. End of the reading. The 21st of April, 1904, Volume 6. One who has the title of victim can fight with justice. Continuing in my usual state, I felt people around my bed praying to our Lord, but I did not care about hearing what they wanted. I only cared about the fact that it was late, and blessed Jesus had not yet made himself seen. Oh, how my heart was tormented, fearing that he might not come at all. And I said to myself, "Blessed Lord, we are now at the last hour, and you are still not coming. Oh, please, do not give me this sorrow. Let yourself be seen at least." While I was saying this, he came out from within my interior and said to those who were around me, "It is not licit for creatures to fight with my justice. Only for one who has the title of victim is it not only to fight, but to play with justice. And this because in fighting or playing, one easily suffers blows, defeats, and losses, and the victim is ready to receive the blows upon herself and to resign herself in the defeats and losses without caring about her losses, about her sufferings, but only about the glory of God and the good of her neighbour. If I wanted to placate myself, I have my victim here, who is ready to fight and to receive all the fury of my justice upon herself. It shows that they were praying in order to placate the Lord. I was left mortified and more embittered upon hearing this from our Lord. End of the reading. The 21st of April, 1916, Volume 11. The privation of Jesus, which Louisa suffers. The sins of the world have surrounded the most holy humanity of Jesus with thorns, preventing him from pouring his grace upon creatures. I continue my most bitter days. I fear that someday Jesus may not even come in passing. And in my pain, I keep repeating, "Jesus, don't do this to me. If you don't want to speak, so be it. If you don't want to give me the gift of your charism, fiat. But not coming at all, not this. You know that it would cost me my life, and that my very nature, left without you until evening, would melt." As I was saying this, blessed Jesus, increasing my bitterness, made himself seen, telling me, "Know that if I do not come to pour myself out with you for a little while, it is because the world is receiving the last blow of destructions and all sorts of scourges." What fright! I remained terrified and petrified for the pain. So I continued to pray, saying, "My Jesus, for every moment of your privation, I ask you that a new life of yours be created within the souls. You must give me this grace. Only on this condition do I accept your privation. I don't deprive myself of a trifle, but of you, immense, infinite, eternal God. The cost is immense. Therefore, let's come to a deal." Jesus stretched his arms around my neck as if he were accepting, and looking at him, what a painful sight! Not only his head, but all of his most holy humanity was surrounded by thorns, to the extent that I was pricked in hugging him. But I wanted to enter into Jesus at any cost, and he, all goodness, broke that garment of thorns at the point of his heart and placed me inside. I could see the divinity of Jesus, and although his divinity was one with his humanity, while his humanity was tortured, his divinity remained untouchable. Jesus told me, "My daughter, have you seen what a painful garment creatures made for me, and how these thorns have penetrated into my humanity? These thorns have closed the door to the divinity, having surrounded all of my humanity, only from which could my divinity come out for the good of creatures. Now it is necessary that I remove part of these thorns and that I pour them on the creatures, so that as the light of my divinity flows from these thorns, I may save their souls. Therefore it is necessary that the earth be invested by chastisements, earthquakes, famines, wars, etc., in order to break this garment of thorns the creatures made for me. In this way, as the light of the divinity penetrates into their souls, I will be able to disillusion them and to make better times arise. End of the reading. The 21st of April 1922, Volume 14. Effects of Prayer in the Most Holy Will of God. Everything that I have written and that I write is only to obey, and much more for fear that my Jesus, being displeased, may find a pretext to deprive me of him. He alone knows how much it cost me. So I spent one day without Jesus, just a few shadows of him. Oh, what pain! I was saying to myself, how soon he broke his promise of not leaving me. Oh, holy eternal volition, bring me my highest good, my all. The pain I felt was such that I felt huffy and fussy. But in this state I tried to fuse myself in his holy volition. In the meantime he came, showing himself crying bitterly, and with his heart cut into many pieces. Seeing him crying, I put my happiness aside, and hugging him and drying his tears, I said to him, "What is it, Jesus? Why do you cry? Tell me, what have they done to you?" And he, "Ah, my daughter, they want to challenge me. They are preparing for me an awful challenge, and it is from the leaders. My sorrow is such that I feel my heart being cut into pieces. Ah, how just it is that my justice pour itself out against creatures. Therefore come into my will together with me. Let us rise between heaven and earth and adore together the supreme majesty. Let us bless it and give it homage for all, so that heaven and earth may be filled with adorations, homages and blessings, and all may receive their effects." So I spent the morning praying together with Jesus in his will. But, oh surprise, as we prayed, one was the Word, but the divine volition diffused it over all created things, and its mark remained on all of them. It brought it into heaven, and not only did the blessed receive its mark, but it was for them cause of new beatitude. It descended to the bottom of the earth and even into purgatory, and all received its effects. But who can say how it was to pray with Jesus and all the effects that it produced? Then after we prayed together, he told me, "My daughter, have you seen what it means to pray in my will? Just as there is no point at which my volition does not exist, it circulates in everything and in everyone. It is life, actor and spectator of everything. In the same way, the acts done in my volition become life, actors and spectators of all, even of the very joy, beatitude and happiness of the saints. Everywhere they bring light, the balsamic and celestial air, which unleashes joys and happiness. Therefore, never depart from my will. Heaven and earth await you to receive new joy and new splendour." End of the reading. The 21st of April 1923, Volume 15. The darkest point of the present society. This morning my always lovable Jesus transported me outside of myself to a place in which one could see flags being waved and parades in which all classes of people were participating, including priests. As though offended by all this, Jesus wanted to clasp the creatures in his hand, to crush them. And I, taking his hand in mine, clasped him to myself, saying to him, My Jesus, what are you doing? After all, they don't seem to be doing evil things, but rather good things. It seems that the church is uniting with your enemies of before, and these no longer show that aversion for dealing with people from the church. On the contrary, they call them to bless their flags. Is this not a good sign? And you, instead of being pleased with it, seem to get offended. And Jesus, sighing and highly afflicted, told me, My daughter, how you are deceiving yourself. This is the darkest point of the present society, and their union means that they all have the same colour. The enemies are no longer afraid and horrified to approach people from the church, because since the true fount of virtue and religion is not in them. On the contrary, some of them celebrate the divine sacrifice without believing in it in my existence. For others, if they believe at all, it is a faith without works, and their lives are a chain of enormous sacrileges. So what good can they do if they don't have it within themselves? How can they call others to a conduct of a true Christian by making known what great evil sin is, if the life of grace is missing in them? With all the unions that they form, there are no more men who fulfill the precept. Therefore, it is not the union of the triumph of religion, it is a triumph of their party. And masking themselves with it, they try to cover the evil they are plotting. It is a true revolution that is hidden under these masks, and I remain always the offended God, both by the evil, who pretend a shade of piety in order to strengthen their party and therefore do graver evil, and by people from the church, who, having a false piety, are no longer good for drawing the peoples to follow me. On the contrary, it is the peoples that carry them away. Can there be a time sadder than this? Pretense is the ugliest sin, and that which most wounds my heart. Therefore pray and repair. End of the reading. The 21st of April, 1929, volume 26. How the divine will is fullness. How Adam before sinning possessed the fullness of sanctity. The Virgin and all created things possess this fullness. My abandonment in the divine fiat continues. I feel I cannot be without remaining in my dear inheritance that my sweet Jesus with so much love gave me, saying to me, Daughter, I entrusted to you that you may never go out of it, and may make your continuous echo resound from one point to another in such a way that all of heaven may hear that our endless inheritance of our fiat on earth is not isolated, but is inhabited by our little daughter. She will always go around within it to keep company with all the acts of our will and with all of its apartments. Therefore, it is dear and sweet to me, living in my celestial inheritance. I would feel life missing in me without it. So while I was going around in it, my always lovable Jesus was going around together with me, and all love told me, My daughter, my divine will is all fullness. There is nothing that it does not possess. Immensity of light, unreachable sanctity, endlessness without boundaries, incessant generation. It sees everything, it feels and moulds everything. All this is its nature in my divine fiat. Therefore, its acts possess the fullness of all goods. So, in order to be able to enclose even a single act of it in the depth of the soul, it is necessary that she empty herself of all of herself and return to the void of her nothingness, as in the act in which she was created, so that my divine volition may find the space of the nothingness to be able to deposit an act of fullness of its own, that is such that, possessing the incessant generative virtue, one act calls for another. in a way that nothing must be lacking, neither fullness of light, of sanctity, of love, of beauty, nor multiplicity of divine acts. Therefore, the sanctity done in my divine will possesses all the fullness, but so much that if God wanted to give her more, he would not find the space in which to put more light, more beauty. We would say, you are all beautiful, nor can we add for you any more beauty. So beautiful you are the work of our volition, and this is enough for you to be a work worthy of us. And the soul will say, I am the triumph of your divine fiat, therefore I am all rich and beautiful. I possess the fullness of an act of your divine will that fills me completely, and if you wanted to give me more, I would not know where to put it. Such was the fullness of the sanctity of Adam before he fell into the maze of his human will, because he possessed the first act of our fiat, generator of his creation, and therefore he possessed fullness of light, of beauty, of strength, of grace. All the qualities of our fiat were reflected in him and embellished him so much that we ourselves felt enraptured in looking at him, in seeing in him so well sculpted our dear image that our divine being formed in him. And this is why, even though he fell, he did not lose the life nor the regenerative hope of our fiat, because since he had possessed the fullness of its act in the beginning of his life, it did not want to lose the one who had possessed it. The divinity felt so bound to Adam that it did not feel like banishing him forever. It takes too much to lose what once was possessed by our fiat. Our strength would feel weak. Our love, the fire it possesses, would shrink in order not to do it. It would be the true divine embarrassment to lose the one who has possessed even just one act of the fullness of our will. Such fullness of sanctity was possessed by the height of the sovereign queen, and therefore there is no void in her. She filled herself so much as to possess these of light, of graces, of beauty, of power. Her fullness is such and so great that we have no place in which to put, and she has no place in which to receive, because she is the only celestial creature who lived under the empire of the act of our divine fiat, and who can say, I am an act of divine will, and in this is the secret of my beauty, power, greatness, and even of my maternity. What can one act of our fiat not do? It can do everything. Its prerogative is the fullness of everything. An act of it is the sun, and it possesses the fullness of the light. And if one could ask the sun, would you like to have more light? It would answer, I have so much of it that I can give light to all, and while I give it, I do not lose it, because I possess the source of the light, of the act of the divine fiat. The sky is an act of it, therefore it extends everywhere. Its fullness is such that it finds no place in which to extend more azure drapes. The wind is an act of our divine fiat, and therefore it possesses the fullness of the empire of the strength. Who can resist the strength of the wind? No one. It makes a fool of everything. With its ruling strength, it uproots cities and trees, and it lifts up and knocks down everything as if it was straw. All creation, each created thing, possesses the fullness of the act of our fiat, and therefore not one thing is poor. They are all rich in the fullness wanted by our divine volition. Nor is anything in need of anything. They are rich of their own by nature. The sea possesses the fullness of the waters, the earth the fullness of the plants, and of the very many varied varieties of plants, because all of them are births from the act of our divine volition. Now, my daughter, the living in my divine will is precisely this, to possess and enjoy the fullness of the divine goods in such a way that nothing must be lacking to her, neither sanctity nor light nor beauty. They will be the true births from my adorable fiat. End of the reading. 21st of April 1936, Volume 34. Divine outpouring for one who lives in his will. How he renders her participator of his works. How he always has something to give and to operate together with the creature. I am always in the sea of the divine volition, where I find strength, peace, and love. Rather, as I enter into it, seeing my littleness, that I am not good at doing anything, the divinity who so much loves to make his will operate in my littleness, arms his sanctity, his wisdom, his goodness, strength, the divine light around me, in order to have that his will finds in me its divine qualities, so as to be able to do its operating act in me. In fact, he puts forth of his in order to give grace to the creature to let her operate in it. So I followed the acts of the divine will, and it carried me in its arms. It sustained me. It breathed in me in order to make me receive the participation of its acts. Therefore I arrived at the act of the conception of the Virgin, and I found myself in the little heart of the conceived Virgin. I do not know how to say it. I do not know how to continue on any more, but my sweet Jesus, in order to make me understand, told me, blessed daughter of my volition, you have reason. The waves of my volition inundate you, they drown you, and your little capacity is lost, and your Jesus is needed in order to better explain to you what you see, but do not know how to say. Now know, my daughter, such and so much is our love for one who wants to live and does live in our divine volition, that we want to make her participator of all our works, for as much as is possible for a creature, even giving her the merit of our divine works. As the creature enters into our will, it calls in act its divine operation, as if at that instant it were operating. And identifying her in its acts, it makes her see the prodigies of its operation and receives and confirms her in good, letting her feel the new life of its act. You have seen the conception of the Sovereign Queen, and how you, being in my will, found yourself conceived in her maternal heart. You see the great difference for one who lives in my volition. The prodigies of the Immaculate Conception were unheard of. My will that animated this conception, from which no one could escape, called all creatures present so that they would remain conceived in her virgin heart, and they would receive her maternity, her help, her defence. They would find the refuge, the support in this celestial Mama. Now, one who lives in our volition finds herself in the act that conceives. She is the daughter who spontaneously, with her will, seeks her Mama, and she takes her place. She encloses herself in her maternal heart in order to let the Celestial Queen act as Mama. Now this one will take part in the riches of the Sovereign Lady, in her merits, in her love. She will feel in herself the nobility, the sanctity of her, because she knows to whom it belongs, and God will render her participator of the infinite goods and of the exuberant love that he had in the conception of this holy creature. And the same for all our works. As the creature seeks them, calls them into our will in order to know them and love them, we call in act our works. We place her in the centre of them. We let her feel and experience all our love, the power of our creative strength. And the littleness of the creature undergoes it. It fills her, even to not being able to contain more. My daughter, not to make participator of our works one who lives in our will is impossible for us, nor would it be that our true love, because we possess by nature the communicative strength, and we want to communicate to everyone our divine goods. It is the creatures who reject them. But for one who lives in our volition, we display in communicating our goods. We do not find any opposition in her, And if this were not so, we would hinder our divine being. Rather, it is one happiness of ours to love, to give, to abound to our beloved creatures. Now see therefore the great difference of one who lives in our will. The other creatures find themselves in our works, in the conception of the Holy Virgin, in the incarnation of the Word, in my suffering, in my death, and even in my resurrection. But they find themselves in virtue of our power and immensity, almost I could say by necessity, not by love, nor because they know our goods and they love to make their sojourn in them in order to enjoy them. In fact, it is because no one can escape from our divine being. However, for one who lives in our volition, it is the creature who seeks our works, knows them, loves them, appreciates them, and comes to take her place within them. And she loves and operates together with us. So as a result, she participates, she acquires new knowledges and new love, while the others remain and do not know them. They do not love us. They do not have a word to tell us. One could say they remain to encumber our immensity, and many in order to offend us. Therefore, it is our ardent yearning that the soul lives in our volition. We always have something to give and always something to do with her, and she has something to do together with us. We do not give each other time. One act calls another. We quite know each other. Our will first makes us known, makes us love, and then it forms the perennial union with the creature in our will. End of the reading. There are no more readings today.